The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America. Downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Hurricane Dorian destroys the Bahamas, now headed to Florida as Trump four-putts. New UN report, U.S. may be complicit in Yemenis war crimes. Saudi Arabia kills more, and renewed calls in the Senate to end our funding. Meanwhile, across the pond, Boris Johnson loses the majority in Parliament, and I have no idea what any of it means. None of it. Meanwhile, in the wake of yet another shooting, mass shooting, 7 dead, 21 injured, Texas loosens its gun laws. And the September debate will happen over one night. It is now a three-way race. As Warren gains some momentum, Bernie introduces a medical debt relief plan, and Joe Biden makes up stories in descending into madness. And while Trump's assaults on government functions continue, Monsanto works with Republicans to curb our regulatory agencies and to attack scientists over glyphosate. Meanwhile, France tries to revive the Iran nuke deal. Trump locks up asylum cases and softens on deporting the desperately ill. Mass protests continue in Hong Kong, and Modi's oppression of Kashmir may get us all blown up. Lastly, 9 months later, Democrats launch an inquiry into the Trump campaign's hush money payments. All this and more on today's program. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We are live. Welcome. Thank you all for waiting for us to return. We had, I got a lot of tweets, and it was rough out there. We had the Letter Hack. Is that the name of the podcast guy who does the cartoons? Is it? He did a couple of funny cartoons in our absence that I appreciated. We should have pulled those. Maybe we'll show them tomorrow. And just want to also give a shout out to Bender's dad. He had a heart attack, had angioplasty. Apparently, is doing well. I'm going to give him one of these. Quick recovery, hopefully, and hope he's feeling better. Folks, thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the vacation shows. It appears that many of you did, and I'm glad it's the Letter Hack is the name of the check out the Letter Hack's Twitter feed, and you will see some pretty amazing cartoons with a quick turnaround. It's got like a factory, I feel, of people who are drawing those things. But Appreciate your checking out the show in our absence, and glad you could join us now. Hope your Labor Day weekend was good. Let me get this right out of the way with what's going on in Great Britain. I tried not to follow the news over the course of vacation. I can't totally help myself in those situations. And I found, particularly when it came to what's going on in England, to be it's the functional equivalent of like a money pit, like buying a house that is in incredible disrepair, and you pull off, you start to do the demo and you pull off the drywall, and then you're like, oh no.
Imagine how they feel.
We've got mold. Now I need mold remediation. And yeah, I tried to follow what was going on where they're going to suspend Parliament for just a couple of days so that he can get a no-deal Brexit, or then actually what he really wanted was his gambit to suspend Parliament to fail so that he could go around and say that, well, we tried to get the no-deal Brexit, but we couldn't. And then it appears that he's lost support. Look, let me just say this. Get a constitution. Can we just clear this up?
It's not a bad idea.
You got to write down directions. You need directions. That's all.
And then you go, and then he will go to His Majesty's Privy Council.
Leave the House of Lords out of it, though.
Probably leave the House of Lords out.
But in all honesty,
then if the leader of the Liberal Dems winks, then Jeremy Corbyn will have approximately 25 minutes to enter the room. Then the coalition will collapse. However, if Boris Johnson meets with the Queen at 0.42 hours, then the Parliament stays in session for 4 days. However, they cannot pass a single piece of legislation. It's really not that complicated. Please cover this more on the program.
Well, that's the thing, is that I desperately want to be able to cover this. It is obviously of huge import, and has the potential to be of huge import for decades to come.
Can I say something?
And for the life of me, I can't understand any of it. I don't know what's going on anymore. I can't figure it out.
I think this is part of the problem.
I get deeper in and I get lost and I don't know where I am, and then I get nervous.
I think this is part of the problem, which is that, and we will cover it, certainly, and it does matter, but I think part of what's happening in the UK is grappling with the psychology that it really actually doesn't matter as much as they want it to for the world.
Well,
like a big part of, I mean, look, it's not good, but you're talking about going from being a globe-spanning, empire to, frankly, and if Brexit does happen in a no-deal fashion, a peripheral mid-rank state off of Europe that will not have much global influence at all.
Well, then the question becomes what follows in its wake. What lessons are drawn from others is as to the import of this. And
this one might actually be a negative lesson. This one might actually be maybe we don't want to follow that particular trend.
It's possible.
This doesn't look that hot.
No. But we will, we'll endeavor to cover it to the extent that we can, but I just don't want to get out there and start talking about something that I, have just very little grasp on. Now, I'm willing to say that up front and say that I'm not going to get up on a stage or in front of a microphone and talk about something I know very little about. Apparently, the odds-on favorite for our next Democratic nominee, he has no such compunction. Now, this is really, really stunning. And there was a Monmouth poll that came out maybe last week that showed Biden, Warren, and Sanders effectively tied at around 19-20%. I think Monmouth itself backed off this poll, said it was an outlier, and by all accounts, it appears to be an outlier. I still stand by my prediction that within 2 months, Joe Biden will be third in the polls, We'll see. I'll be honest with you, I'm getting a little nervous about that one, but I'm getting more nervous about the idea that this guy could enter into the general election with a party that sees him as weakened before he even gets there, that there is no fired up Joe Biden constituency, and that he will be unable to gain any momentum. And this isn't just about gaffes, folks. I mean, what this is not a gaffe. I don't even know what to call it. Was it a gaffe when he basically borrowed Neil Kinnock's life story, and plagiarized it? I don't know. But I don't even know how to characterize this.
Yeah, it was a gaffe.
In his response.
Total gaffe.
Okay, here it is. He's speaking in New Hampshire, and this is a pretty dramatic speech he's giving, but here it is. Do we have the whole thing uncut? Wait, don't we have the clip uncut, or is it just this? Oh, it's just in this news pack. All right, well, let's just watch it. This is a news clip from NBC reporting this.
It's a moving war story that Joe Biden has told before.
This guy climbed down a ravine, carried this guy up on his back under fire.
That he was in Afghanistan as vice president when he was asked to pin a silver star on a heroic Navy captain.
I said, sir, I don't want the damn thing. Do not pin it on me, sir. Please, sir, do not do that. He died. He died.
But according to the Washington Post, almost every detail of that story he told Friday appears to be incorrect. That he was conflating elements from multiple actual events, including when he pinned a Bronze Star on this Army staff sergeant, Chad Workman. Ultimately, the Post reports Biden got the time period, the location, the heroic act, the type of medal, the military branch, and the rank of the recipient wrong, as well as his own role in the ceremony.
Pause it. What was left?
I'm a compulsive liar, and I'm losing my faculties.
That a guy rejected a medal, apparently.
Right. Here, we'll continue.
God's truth, my word is a Biden.
Asked tonight
God's
if he
truth,
conflated
my word
multiple
is a
stories
Biden.
told.
Yeah, let's go back a little bit, because I sort of think that when you say the God's truth and you are, I mean, I don't know what the answer is here. Is he like, he's so confused that he's conflating these three different stories, or he's decided to sort of like, take some fiction with it, or I don't know what.
Got the time period, the location, the heroic act, the type of medal, the military branch, and the rank of the recipient wrong, as well as his own role in the ceremony.
And it's the God's truth, my word is a Biden.
Asked tonight if he conflated multiple stories, Biden told a South Carolina newspaper, "No, I don't think so. The central point is it was absolutely accurate what I said. He refused the medal."
And I guess he addressed this more, after the fact. He doesn't think that it's important. I mean, let's just hear his explanation.
The point about a generation. That has nothing to do with the judgment of whether or not you send troops to war, the judgment of whether you bring someone home, the judgment of whether or not you decide on a health care policy.
Not
you
judgment,
understand
though, Mr.
that.
President. No, not judgment, but details. Because that's something I've heard from some voters, maybe not at your events, but details.
No, but the details are irrelevant in terms of decision making if, in fact, I forget that it was Rodriguez of all the times. I've been in and out of Afghanistan and Iraq and Bosnia and Kosovo as much as anybody except maybe my deceased friend John McCain and maybe Lindsey Graham.
All right. So there he is. Details are not irrelevant when it comes to judgment, making these important decisions. Look, here's the problem. If you are someone who believes, like I am, that Donald Trump must be defeated, to the extent that, if it's Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. Of course, I'm not even going to think about it. In fact, I'm probably going to try not to think about it. But the problem is that in a general election, stories that say he got the time wrong, the place wrong, the rank wrong, the military service wrong, his role in the ceremony wrong. He got it all wrong. Stories that say that are going to be a liability, regardless of what your perspective is. And what it's going to do is it's going to it's going to depress turnout.
The only thing this guy remembers clearly is all the Republicans he's friends with.
Yeah, well, he definitely wanted to push that. And, you know, there's a lot of evidence that that whole notion, him appealing to the John McCain, is just simply not going to work. It didn't work last time. And there's no reason to believe that someone's going to take Joe Biden's word for it as to whether Donald Trump is a good guy or a bad guy. This is a combination of when he's told this story in this way for over 3 years, apparently.
A 4-star to pin a silver medal on a young captain. I have been asked in a forward operating base in the middle of a godforsaken nowhere in the upper Konar Valley in Afghanistan to pin a silver star on a young, coincidentally, Navy captain in what they call a FOB, a forward operating base. I pinned medals on, silver stars on soldiers up in the upper Konar Valley in the middle of a firestorm the poor guys have gone through. Young Navy captain, Navy, up in the mountains in the Konar Valley in Afghanistan.
Who had pulled a badly wounded gunner to safety, returning fire to repel the enemy, and then keeping his buddy alive until medevac arrived.
Who had pulled someone out of a burning Humvee, risking his life. One of his buddies got shot, fell down a ravine about 60 feet. This guy climbed down the ravine.
Now the ravine
this guy up
thing.
on his back under fire. He had gone down a ravine to rescue one of his men who had been shot, brought him back under hail of gunfire, was wounded, but the young man died.
I know it sounds a little corny, but I don't think there was a dry eye in the house.
And the general wanted me to pin the silver
star. All right, we don't need to. I mean, look, over the years, the story has evolved.
This is sort of like how you tell Bob's Burgers story.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is less, like the problem is just simply that there is just a tremendous amount of risk when it comes to Joe Biden. And in many respects, put away all the other issues that people had with Hillary Clinton, put away all of the arguments that people make about her strategy, about James Comey, about, all of it. Put that aside for a moment. One of the things that put pressure on Clinton to not make any other mistakes or to not have any other things impact her campaign was the fact that there was a certain amount of baggage that she came in with that was not a function of anything other than a 30-year campaign by Republicans to, basically have a cottage industry against her. And Joe Biden is going to come in with a similar set of baggage that I think is highly problematic. So I don't know. It's a little bit scary.
I actually think, and maybe we want to dismiss this, but I think false memory is a really powerful thing that we don't really understand. And I think he's genuinely conflating all these things together in his mind.
There's no doubt. I think that's true. I do think that's true. The problem is that when you have a candidate who is running on pablum, okay, this is not a situation where Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, they're not getting up there and telling homespun stories about themselves, and their candidacy is not a function of that. Joe Biden is not running on policy, right? Joe Biden is running on character. Joe Biden, and this is exactly the same shit we were saying about Hillary Clinton, that he wants to run on his CV. In this instance, it's even a narrower CV. Insofar as it's about his character and his morals, and you can trust me. And the problem with that is that you become susceptible to stuff like this. Elizabeth Warren is not running on that. Bernie Sanders is not running on that. They're running on proposals. They're running on prescriptions for the country. Of course, they're running against Donald Trump. But when you rely on just sort of this, this more ethereal stuff, this character stuff, when you do stuff like this, it inhibits your sales pitch. And and if there is any fight that Donald Trump can compete in, it's on this territory. He cannot compete on questions of policy.
Trump already said he's losing his fastball.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so dangerous about.
If it's two grouchy old men losing it, Trump is going to be pretty adroit at that game.
It's not even a question of him being that adroit. It's the idea of like, and this is what this was expressed to me about what was going on in Wisconsin when they saw what was happening there. It was just a race to see who could do worse.
Right. Well, yeah. And it's in the sense that he will motivate his people no matter what, talking his nonsense. Joe Biden is not necessarily going to do that at all.
People have to remember in 2018, the Republicans also had, I think, a record-breaking turnout. It just so happens that the Democrats had an even greater record-breaking turnout. Anyways, folks, in this golden age of television and podcasts, I think we all know the value of a truly compelling narrative. Cue Hunt a Killer. It's the murder mystery box that immerses you in an ongoing experience. With every delivery or, episode, as you could call it, you're going to dive deeper into what it's like to being a detective. You sift through piles of documents, you have evidence, case files, until you crack the case.
Who did it?
Cigarettes, coffee.
Oh, that's cool.
Like a bottle of booze in your drawer. Yeah, well, I do it with Miles, so I don't do that. But instead of staring at a screen, you can build an investigation board with friends or an online community helping each other through every challenge. Plus, parts of the proceeds for every box goes to the Cold Case Foundation to help fund cold case investigations. We got a bulletin board in our apartment. We put up the stuff that comes in the box. You get pictures, you get clues, you get reports, and it's fun. And I got to say, the thing that I really like about it is not on an iPad, not on a computer. You can go online with the thing, but it's not, you don't need to. You're just sitting there, you're talking. Right now, for our listeners, you can go to huntakiller.com/majority for 20% off your first box. They only accept 200 members per day, so hard to take advantage of this offer. That's huntakiller.com/majority for 20% off your first box. huntakiller.com/majority. All right, let's go into this proposal that Bernie Sanders unveiled, which is, both just, I think, great policy, but it's also going to be interesting politics, in which I think we will see more of. Like I said earlier, the debate on September 12th, it's going to be on Thursday, September 12th. There's only 10 people in it, only. And, but there's just going to be one debate. So, I don't have it right in front of me as to who made it, but you can imagine who did and who didn't. Castro will be there. Obviously, Warren, Sanders, and Biden. Klobuchar, Yang. You will have Booker and Harris and Beto O'Rourke. Buttigieg. And am I missing one? Maybe I'm missing one, but no Delaney. No, those other people, no Gabbard. And so I think, to a certain extent, this is, we need to start having more of these smaller debates, I think. Because it's really the only way. The Democrats need to examine their candidates. And the only way that you can do that is to, 25 people is very difficult to do. So here it is, the proposal that Sanders is, well, here, let's play this. This is his introduction. He teased this, I guess this is a couple of days ago, and then more details are starting to trickle out.
In another piece of legislation that we're going to be offering, we will eliminate medical debt in this country. I mean, I just stop and think for a second, why should people be placed in financial duress? For what crime did you commit? You had a serious illness? All right. That is not what this country should be about.
We still have something like 50% of all personal bankruptcies are either in a large part or a significant part due to medical expenses. That's just unbelievable. And you can imagine that the stress of being in bankruptcy is also not going to help you get better physically. You can also imagine that having physical and medical ailments are going to make it much harder for you to get out of bankruptcy. So under Sanders' plan, the government would negotiate and pay off past due medical bills that have been reported to credit agencies. It would repeal some elements, and this is an important part. Now, this is all told, they think it is going to end up canceling about $81 billion in existing past due medical debt. So if you're current with your medical debt, it will not pay it off. Now, that dynamic is a little bit tricky. Frankly, sort of a similar dynamic we saw with HAMP, although they didn't, that was the home mortgage adjustment program. There was a lot of other problems with that, but for now, this is, I think, a good first step. What we really need to do is get to a place where you cannot create debt by having a medical problem. It would also repeal some elements of the 2005 bankruptcy reform bill and allow other existing and future medical debt to be discharged. The 2005 bankruptcy reform bill made it difficult to discharge this debt. In other words, in bankruptcy, you get protection from your creditors. And in some instances, you can just jettison that debt. But the 2005 bankruptcy bill imposed strict means tests and eliminated fundamental consumer protections for Americans. I mean, that bankruptcy bill is a disaster.
It's caused so much harm.
And
for so many people.
It is also, frankly, another function of inequality in this country. Donald Trump, perfect example of somebody who used bankruptcy laws multiple times. There's no means testing when you go to bankruptcy as a corporation. And of course, you're at arm's length anyways from your own assets. Only people unable to pay their medical debt would be granted relief. Those keeping up with their payments would have to continue to pay. The proposal would also create a new legal framework to ensure that no credit scores are negatively affected upon unpaid medical bills. So that's a big part of this as well. I mean, that's pretty exciting stuff. More stuff will come out. But $81 billion to get rid of the medical debt of people who are in financial distress. Were you aware that our defense budget went up by $100 billion last year?
Yes.
Did that materially affect you? So the idea that we couldn't afford to do this is just ridiculous. We could do this without batting an eye. If it wasn't reported, no one would know except for all of those millions of people who are suffering under medical debt. I mean, it's a no-brainer. And it's going to be interesting because Joe Biden was one of the main proponents of that 2005 bankruptcy bill. And just to give you a sense of what's going on with the Washington Post, this is sort of like a sidebar.
I don't know. It's a sidebar. I think they're incredible dishonesty this cycle.
There's something very bizarre with going on with the Post.
It's ideological, but it's also a bizarre personal hatred of Bernie Sanders.
I mean, look, I don't know what motivates it, but it's real. The dynamic is real. And, this came up in the context of apparently, I think we mentioned this last week that Neera Tanden, accused me of doxing somebody because I retweeted a clip from an unnamed LinkedIn account of an anonymous tweeter who was featured on MSNBC News, making the case that Bernie Sanders in some way was, engaging in conspiracy theory about the Washington Post. It's all weird stuff. But here is, so the Washington Post did a fact check on Bernie Sanders' claim that 500,000 Americans are bankrupted by medical bills each year. And it gave him 3 Pinocchio level liar, I guess out of 4, for saying this. Sanders based his statement on research, and this is actually written by one of the researchers, that we and 3 colleagues published in the American Journal of Public Health. This guy named Warren Gunnels. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Right. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. And here's the author of the study. In our 2019 research, 37% of bankrupts very much agreed that medical bills were an important factor, while another 21.5% somewhat agreed. Many others cited lost wages due to illness. Overall, 2/3 cited illness-related bills, incomes, loss, or both. That's equivalent to 530,000 medical bankruptcies annually. But even the 530,000 figure is an underestimate of the number of people affected by medical bankruptcies. Most bankruptcies involve more than one person and average about 2.7 people, often including a spouse, partner, and child. That means that the 750,000 bankruptcies last year involved more than 2 million people. Somehow, the Washington Post came up with 3 Pinocchios. According to this researcher, the claim that the Post relied on rests on an econometric study that found only a modest uptick in bankruptcy filings among persons hospitalized in California between 2003 and 2007. But that study appeared tailor-made to undercount medical bankruptcies.
And who funded that study, I wonder?
Yeah, as we and Elizabeth Warren noted in our response to it in the New England Journal of Medicine, it excluded most people who were frequently hospitalized, a group that's at high risk of medical bankruptcy. It assumed that anyone not hospitalized could not suffer medical bankruptcy, even though people who aren't hospitalized in the course of a year account for 4/5 of out of all pocket medical bills, that no one is bankrupt by bills for a child's or partner's care, and that potentially bankrupting illnesses never start before the moment of hospitalization, an assumption contradicted by the study's own data. This was by David Himmelstein, Steffi Woodhandler, distinguished professors of public health at the City University of New York. So there's something very strange going on at the Washington Post, and I don't know what accounts for it, but it's real.
Well, I mean, there was the one that several weeks ago with the multiple jobs, people having to work multiple jobs to earn a living, where essentially the guy was like, well, it is literally millions of people, but that's not really that many. I mean, I think they're showing the ball in a lot of things, and then you look at the Nate Silver phenomenon, where, his whole brand is built on being supposedly an objective arbiter of numbers, and he's just fixated on Sanders on Twitter.
It's very strange.
I mean, never trust people who say they're not ideological, period, is definitely something that I would pretty strongly assert. And I think that we're going to need to upgrade fact checking. Fact checking is going to need to
Glenn
be
Kessler
a very different thing because these people are useless at best.
Well, let's actually. Do we have that clip of Jordan Peterson calling for a debate?
This is a good example of something to not fact check.
Right. We'll get to that in a moment. But here you have millions of Americans are forced to work 2 to 3 jobs just to survive, said Bernie Sanders. The Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that nearly 8 million people hold more than one job, but most of those extra jobs are part-time, not full-time.
It's like if you're
How could you work
2 full-time
two
jobs?
full-time jobs?
That's the metric. Look at the next
And the
line.
millions, that's in quotation, of people amount to just 5% of Americans with jobs. So that
Millions.
means that
That's a-
95% of workers are not working 2 or 3 jobs to survive, making this a misleading statement.
And the statement again. Read the statement.
Millions of Americans are forced to work 2 or 3, but not tens of millions like he didn't say.
Right. Or a majority of Americans or most American. I mean, I love it. It's like there's all these different ways you could shift it for it to not work. But gave you the one exact framing where it's like, yep, 5 millions would be a formulation of millions, and there you go.
There's been Democrats that have been a little bit, cavalier with the way they cite that, and this make it seem like maybe 25% of people or something like that. But Bernie,
no, he said
of
millions.
Yeah.
Well, it's also great too that it's like, it's just 5 million people that have to like drive an Uber 20 hours a week in addition to working a full-time job in order to survive. Who cares?
Look, this is important to talk about because we're talking about, today we're talking about the Washington Post fact-checking Bernie Sanders in just a bizarre way. We're talking about Joe Biden going out there and telling a, semi-fabricated story and saying that the details are not important. Not important.
With genuine rage.
Yeah.
He inhabited that role well.
Yes.
So it was definitely like Jill didn't bring him his Jell-O.
There are times where something can be completely fake, but also completely right. And apparently someone created an online Jordan Peterson text-to-speech program. It's been taken down. But
in a violation of free speech, I would say.
No kidding.
Satire is the foundation of
free
Western
text-to-speech.
civilization.
Listener Josh apparently created one, and let's hear it.
Good afternoon, Dave, Steve, and others in the I Do. Stop being cowards and debate Sam Seder. It's not actually that hard.
And there you go. And all of that is absolutely true, but that's also totally false. Want to make that absolutely clear. Jordan Peterson, not bright enough to make that comment.
He would be the type of guy that would call you a Seder.
Yeah. No, that's how he would pronounce it, though. Definitely. Let's play it one more time, just because it sounds so good.
Good afternoon, Dave, Steve, and others in the I Do. Stop being cowards and debate Sam Seder. It's not actually that hard.
So there it is. Jordan Peterson's voice coming to my support, not him, Wilfie. But this, the other part about this that's not funny, this is going to be a big problem.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about this for a while. Remember, we saw that test of Adobe had come up with something like that where you can just text it, write it out, and it creates stuff like this. Is that what this was?
Yeah, this was text-to-speech compiled using his lectures and stuff like that.
Wow. All right. I mean, that's scary.
Well, what's really scary is it's a sort of singularity, because they say the singularity is when artificial intelligence gets smarter than man, and now we have a text-to-speech software that's telling more truth than the actual IDW.
Right. That's true. I mean, in a way, and not only are they telling more truth than the IDW, in a way, they are even more dark webby.
They're the dark web.
Yeah, because they're not even allowed to be online. The voice, the text-to-speech machines. But this is going to be a big problem because, I mean, just for example, if this existed with Donald Trump prior to the 2015 election, like that, what he said on that bus could have been a lot worse. Right? He comes off the bus, and with a little bit of tinkering, that's going to sound seamless. And you're going to hear secret audio from a speech that somebody gave in a room of fundraisers. And one of the things that
a lot of intentional disinfo will be put out as well.
One of the things that I think is becoming very clear with this era and Donald Trump is that there are at the least, two very substantial narratives of reality within our politics that are running parallel with each other. You know, that woman who was at that Justin Amash town hall in Michigan who said, like, I thought the Mueller report completely vindicated, exonerated Donald Trump. I had no idea about this stuff. I'd never heard it. And I'm, very, very, I'm a high information voter. And, she didn't say accurate information.
She was seeing Justin Amash live.
Yeah, I mean...
No, that's a really good distinction, though. I think that, there's going to be tons of people that are high information. There was an old Annenberg study, and it's really old at this point. I think I looked at it in college, so probably like 10 years ago or something. But especially people that were at the time, I think it was probably like Fox or Limbaugh or something, they could identify things more than the average voter. Like they would be more likely than not to know who like the Senate Majority Leader was or whatever, factoids, but they were terrible in terms of organizing information. But they were quote unquote high information voters, but they were wrong on the merits of a lot of things. So those are not definitely not the same thing.
Right. But I don't even want to get into like what constitutes a high information voter, but that the idea that there are two different realities that can coexist and that can have the same. I mean, it used to be that Fox needed to, that the way that the media would flow would be from the Drudge Report into Fox and then out to like ABC News, and that would be the whole game. But now they don't need these stories to migrate into the so-called mainstream or lamestream media, as John McCain's running mate would say.
She coined that?
I don't know if she coined it, but she gave it popularity.
Wow.
She gave it popularity. And now they don't need the lamestream media.
Mm-mm.
There's a whole nother, and I imagine this is going to get bigger, but we're going to see more stratification within media, but they're going to be able to concentrate. They stay on message a lot more than the rest of the media does, because that's not what they perceive their job to be. And you can put out something fake and it can do its job. And it doesn't have to last long. You drop this thing in October 15th. You know, if I had a George W. Bush, I can't believe they don't realize I dropped out of National Guard and just show up. I was wasted. And I dropped that, October 15th, 2004. Maybe he's not president.
Oh,
Secret
no, you got
audio
it from
tape.
Karl Rove. It's debunked the next day.
Right.
Not a good move. Not smart.
I got rat-effed. All right, look, we're going to take a break, head into the fun half, folks. You can join us by becoming a member. Simply go to jointhemajorityreport.com. Pennies a day, you can become a member of this program and support what we do here every day. Even on vacation, gave you new programming every single day. And for those members, had the deep archive, Brendan's picks. Good stuff, Brendan says. Sort of threw that off.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know you talked to Hannity.
What's that? Yeah, Hannity came in.
That was the first thing I heard about when I came here, which is why I picked it during my interview. Sam
it was
told
not.
me all
It
about
was the
Hannity.
first.
That's Sam's interview technique, is he tells you about his experience.
It was great.
Well, Brendan came in as like, I had to mute you. At my last job, I had to mute your finding you on YouTube because
So I
was
like
looking
that.
for all
Brendan
the
came
same.
in and alphaed you. He
Right.
put you in check.
Hannity wanted Janine on his program because it was the biggest ratings get at the time. And so we invited Hannity on our show, and he showed up at our studios. And, you know, Janine and I were just not skilled enough at that point to know what to do, frankly. But he actually barged into the studio. He was waiting. He came in early, tried, you know, I mean, like you could see the bones of what he was doing. He was trying to take over the whole room, and Janine at that time thought, like, you can convince these people. Like, she thought that she could convince Hannity because he would take her out to lunch, you know, and she thought that, and at the time, I decided that I had heard that Hannity was was Millenistic, like that he thought we were living in end times. And I kept asking him if he thought we were living in end times. I haven't listened to this, and I haven't listened to it in 15 years. Did you listen to the whole thing, Brendan? Did you listen to it?
I listened to most of it.
I asked him like 3 times, right?
Yeah.
And he was getting mad. And Janine, we were not, you know, this was so early, and we were not on the same page.
Investments.
We were not on the same page with what to do in this situation. And so she was like letting the air out of the tire, and I kept going at him, and he was, you can't see it, but he was mad.
I like at the end that you said he stormed off.
I don't remember.
I wonder why
he's
so
like,
mad.
I didn't. He's like, I didn't storm off. I'm just still sitting here, but you said he did.
Oh, I did.
Deep fake. Analog deep fake. Oh, but he stormed off.
Yeah. You got to say that after he leaves, though.
He lost it, man.
But, yeah, I was messing with him a little bit. But if you're a member, you can go and check that out. You can just sign up, and you'll have access via the app to all of the archives, and you'll be able to go dig into it. So, or just on your computer. Anyways, jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Check out the Morning Quickie. We do it every morning. We're getting it out earlier and earlier. It's available. Just gives you the top stories of the day that you should keep an eye out for.
So you know.
Also, Hunt a Killer. It's the murder mystery box that immerses you in an ongoing experience. With every delivery or episode, you're going to dive deeper into what it's like to be a detective, sifting through piles of documents, evidence, and case files until you crack the case. Right now, just for our listeners, you can go to huntakiller.com/majority. Get 20% off your first box. They only accept 200 members a day, so hurry. You take advantage of this offer now. That's huntakiller.com/majority for 20% off your first box. huntakiller.com/majority. Michael.
Yes, excited to be back tonight. Crystal Ball will be joining us, why the professional class is lining up behind Elizabeth Warren, what that says about her candidacy. Tijia Balthorpe joins us. We're talking about the water crisis in Newark, Jay-Z and the NFL, and an illicit history of the RSS, the BJP, and how that leads to Kashmir today, the Indian dimension of the global authoritarian rise, and then all the other Brexit, Uruguay, a bunch of things we have to catch up on. For patrons, you can check out our Chicago show, which was great. You can listen to that. We had a really fun time, and we will be announcing our next date for our next live show tonight. Patreon.com/TMBS. Michael Brooks Show on YouTube, where we're about to cross our first 73,000 subscribers. So thanks.
Jamie is out, but check out the Antifada at patreon.com/the-Antifada. Matt.
Yeah, for Literary Hangover this Friday, we're doing part 2 of James Fenimore Cooper's The Pioneers, which is probably his best novel.
See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back. back.
Just as delicious as you can imagine.
The alpha males are back, 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 back. And the alpha males are back, 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 back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back, back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back, 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 back.
Almost says what?
The alpha males are back, 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 back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back, back, back.
I am a total cunt. Can we bring back DJ Dannerky's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break for people.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder.
I do not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are
psych. Fuck them. Fuck them.
Almost says what? Almost says what?
Hell of a lot of bank. 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 All lives matter.
Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back, 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 back. And the Africans are black, 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 black African. And the alpha males are back, 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 back. And the Africans are black, 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 black.
You see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on! Fuck 'em. Fuck 'em. Fuck things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday! Happy birthday to me, Jew boy!
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back, back. Africans are black, black. Alpha males are back, back. Africans are black, black.
Come on! Come on! Come on! Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here. I am a total pussy. Pussy, 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 pussy.
We are back. The fun half, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go right to the phones. Calling from a 210 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Did I lose me on there? Hold on. What is going on with this? Hello? Let's try it again. Calling from a 210 area code. Who's this?
Good afternoon, Sam. It's John from San Antonio.
John from San Antonio. How was your vacation, John?
That was good. It was good. I hope you and everybody at the Majority Report enjoyed your vacation.
Well, thank you very much.
It's good to have you back.
It's nice to have you back.
Yeah, I enjoyed. All right. Enjoyed your interviews last week. Good choice by Brendan on the members feed that aired on the Monday, the 26th of August. He played a interview with Rick Hertzberg from the New Yorker the night that Barack Obama was exposed to a national audience during the Democratic Convention on July 27th, 2004. It's a good reminder of how Democrats played defense on every issue. And while some, good policies were implemented during the Obama tenure, it wasn't until Bernie captured the imagination of the American public to the possibilities of the more equal economic system. People are now clamoring for real change. So with that in mind, I want to talk about Bernie's supporter and Black Lives Matter activist and writer Sean King, Flip the Senate, political action group. So Mr. King has endorsed 7 mostly progressive candidates. In Georgia, Ted Terry is a 36-year-old mayor of Clarkston, Georgia, the most ethnically diverse square mile in America. He's passed the decriminalization of marijuana possession, $15 an hour minimum wage, outlawing LGBTQ discrimination, pushing for 100% clean energy future, and make Election Day a holiday. So his biggest challenge comes from former mayor of Columbus, Teresa Tomlinson. So the odds are that the Democrats could win the Senate in 2020 also increased during your vacation when Republican Georgia Senator Johnny Isakson decided to retire at the end of this year. Vote-rigging Governor Brian Kemp will appoint a placeholder for a year until the election in November of next year. And Georgia has a jungle primary for this special election. So if no one receives 50% of the vote, the top two finishers will face off on January 5th of 2021. So in Colorado, progressive Andrew Romanoff was the leading contender before the awful John Hickenlooper got into the race, despite saying many times he wouldn't. So Romanoff, who backs Medicare for All and the Green New Deal, has accused the Democratic senatorial campaign committee of the same tactic that Sherry Bustos is using to protect incumbents in the House, which is blackmailing political organizations by saying if they work with Romanoff, they can't do business with other DSCC candidates.
Yeah, this is stunning. This is really stunning. And I think this probably has more, this is more problematic than even the House one. I mean, because I would imagine that people who are used to working on a statewide campaign, there's not as many of those people. And for Chuck Schumer, this is another Chuck Schumer special. Chuck Schumer, stepping in and it's not clear to me that Hickenlooper is the slam dunk that everybody thinks he is, as opposed to Romanoff. And it is to short circuit this primary process in this way it's pretty stunning. Chuck Schumer's an idiot. I don't know what else to say. He's an idiot, and or he just simply is afraid of having a caucus that might be slightly to the left of him in the Senate. That's the only thing I can think of.
Well, I see this as a party problem. I mean, they seem so terrified, and that's not how you build unity among the party. I mean, you build that by saying, let's discuss these issues, and then we'll see who wins. Yeah. And you're just making people hate the party more who are already prone to think that way anyway. And so you're right, completely right. So, yeah, in Texas, this Cristina Cinzan Ramirez, who's a co-founder and executive director of the Workers' Defense Project, has entered the race. She has an impressive record as an organizer, but I don't see her supporting Medicare for All, and I'm not still sure about her. I'd still like Veronica Escobar, who has seen her profile rise for outspoken support for the immigrant community's mistreatment. I'd like to see her get into the race. And
may I just add, just really quick, Veronica Escobar, and this is important for me, she signed a very important Brazil letter, which I certainly took notice of, in addition to the really important moves on immigration that John's talking about. So that shoots to the top for me, too.
All right. Didn't know that. That's great. So, yeah, there are a couple of other candidates, Maggie Oliver in New Mexico, James Mackler in Tennessee, Jamie Harrison in South Carolina, and Wilmot Collins in Montana. So, check these people out. Check out their websites. I think they have some pretty good issue sets. Most of them are real good progressives. And then there's so many great progressive candidates running for the House. It's hard to keep up with them all, and so it's good to see, that you're interviewing people on Ring of Fire, and Michael's interviewing people, and of course TYT is always interviewing people. So it's great to see, there's going to be more and more people winning. It's just a matter of time before this movement just keeps building. So one thing about the Biden thing. Have you seen that ad, that healthcare ad that he put out on the 27th?
No.
That's a really awful ad. I mean, you ought to check into that, and that could be
essentially, John. If I'm correct, I was not following as closely as I could have been during the vacation, but my understanding is that essentially the upshot of that ad is making a connection between his family tragedy with his son, and then as a sort of bank shot as to why we shouldn't go for Medicare for all. Is that right?
Yeah, that's essentially it. I mean, he doesn't directly say that. He just says we've got to build on what we did, and every American deserves health care. Well, I mean, and he also he talks about his family tragedy, the first family tragedy when his first wife and some of his kids died in the 70s. So he throws that in also. So he's talking about a family tragedy, and then he's like making this disingenuous thing about how his health care plan is the best plan, and it's everybody knows who's actually looked into this. This is far inferior plan. It's just awful. So that's something. So I don't know if you want to discuss anything else about that, what I've talked about, Sam. Or...
No, I mean, I think it's a good roundup. This Romanoff thing has really got me bothered because, like in a place like a Colorado, like, look, in Texas, I am, to get anybody better than Joe Manchin in Texas, let's say, okay, Texas, we got a road to go. There's a big gulf there. But in places like Colorado, where it's not clear to me that Hickenlooper has a better chance than Romanoff, or that Romanoff doesn't have a chance. That is where that type of stuff, where the Democratic Party is actually throwing its energy behind is like actually involved in like a rear guard type of move.
They just elected a governor on a pretty progressive platform, and Romanoff was a state leader. He's got a very good chance.
Right. And so, it's one thing for the Democratic Party to come and say like, okay, look, it's quite clear that this is a red state, and we're going to go back somebody. I mean, like, I don't know if I am too excited about it, but that just seems to me to be like far less egregious than in something like this situation where they are, trying to create a firewall around a guy, less because of his electability and more, it appears to me, just because he's going to be easier for Chuck Schumer to deal with in the Senate. He's just going to moderate the Senate, as if we need more of that moderation in the Senate. It's just, it's enraging to me. But I appreciate the call, John. And
all right, thank you, Sam.
You're getting me that angry. And
I think, I do think, I mean, Schumer has been willing to support pretty progressive people at time, and I'm sure he does have this, the brain dead belief about the electorate, but he's clearly a corporatist, and I think he does feel much more comfortable with corporate oriented right wing Democrats.
Yeah,
clearly.
I don't even think it's. I think it's just more about like control.
Well, okay, so
him.
we can make a distinction with will play ball. So maybe somebody is more liberal or more conservative or whatever, but at the end of the day, is not going to disrupt what he actually wants to run the Senate like.
Exactly.
That tends to correlate with ideology, but I agree. It could be a liberal.
Well, right. And not only is it that run the Senate the way that it's a threat to him, he knows that someone even to the right of him is not going to threaten to dump him in the way that someone to the left of him would.
Right, because at this point, you've got like a Schatz or a Merkley that really, why shouldn't they get a gang together and have a new leader?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't appear that anybody wants that, but I don't know. It's
he's horrible. And he, as a legislator, is horrible. I mean, just look at Wall Street, Facebook, my God.
Here is let's just play this one last Donald Trump thing, get it out of the way so no one will feel sick. Here's Donald Trump. He there's two different things here, I guess, too. Is this the this is This is Colombia. Is this one of the longest running sort of like insurgencies in
this goes back to, I think, the
Central America.
70s.
Yeah.
In Latin America, yes.
You would think that when you become president, you get briefed on some of these sort of like long-standing things.
Well, and also there was a peace deal which has been undermined by a far-right government in Colombia. So not only is this long-standing, it's actually a breakthrough that was pulled back on, and Colombia's already been one of the most violent countries in the region for decades. There's a lot to know.
Making Colombia great. I should know about it.
Trump.
Yeah, they're definitely making Colombia great again.
Right.
Yeah.
Trump was asked about FARC, which is the, I guess in Spanish it's different, but it's the Revolutionary Army of the
Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia.
Armed Forces of Colombia. And their nickname is FARC. And
started in 1964.
Or maybe that's
I thought it was the
Spanish.
70s,
Okay.
1964.
Yeah. And so Donald Trump is asked about it. And this is why he only does this in front of airplanes and in front of helicopters, is because they don't want you to hear the question, is one part of it, and they want to be able to pretend that he didn't hear the question. And if he gets called on this, none of his supporters care. None of his supporters care at all about this. But it is, again, this is just, historians are going to look back at this era and we'll see, what happens with places like Kashmir. We'll see what happens with places like Hong Kong. We'll see what happens throughout Central America, South America. Frankly, we'll look at the Congo. I mean, these are all places that the ignorance, the incompetence, the ideology of the Trump administration. We'll see this in Israel and Palestine. Their absence, their failures, their incompetence, which are not like, history will be able to assess. But this is one of the things that historians will look back on and say, like, for instance, here's an example. I can imagine the seminar course, right, in 20 or 30 years, when all the implications of like having no one at the steering wheel of U.S. foreign policy is, and they'll go, here's one example of those people who make the argument that Trump was just stupid.
From Colombia, how do you feel about former party leaders calling to return to work?
Colombia, you said?
Yeah, Colombia, former leader of FARC.
You're talking about the country of Colombia?
Yeah, the country of Colombia.
No, we have a great relationship, and they're not doing badly. They have a problem because of Venezuela. A lot of people are pouring in. But Colombia, we've had a great relationship with Colombia.
There you go. I mean, it remains to be seen. I lump in, like Kashmir and, the developments in Syria maybe, and the Israel-Palestinian situation and Hong Kong and Central and South America. I mean, and Congo, there had been, I think there's renewed fighting there after the Obama administration with Russ Feingold had basically negotiated peace there. In some instances for worse, in some instances for better, but the complete sort of just like ghosting of the United States in the context of world conflicts is, I don't know. I guess we'll find out if that's what that means. I mean, here is Donald Trump being asked about on the 80th anniversary, I guess, of the invasion of Poland. He didn't go because, remember, he had to stay at home to watch the progress of Dorian from the TV. Apparently,
It might have been a bad internet connection, so I couldn't fight with Deborah Messing on Air Force One. I need to stay.
I got Hurricane Dorian in 4K.
Right. Meanwhile, he did like 36 holes of golf, but he didn't go to Poland.
Mental health day.
80-year anniversary of the invasion of Poland. The invasion of Poland. Not by the Beatles. But by...
Then the Beatles came and all of a sudden everybody had shaggy haircuts.
By the
Dad didn't like
German military. And what they would do is they would shoot people. People would get shot and they would shoot tanks. It was extremely... Back then, it was extremely violent to have your country invaded by an invading force. Here's Donald Trump. What's your response on the 80th anniversary of this invasion where Poland was invaded?
Yeah. I do have a great message for Poland, and we have Mike Pence, our vice president, is just about landing right now, and he is representing me. I look forward to being there soon, but I just want to congratulate Poland. It's a great country with great people. We also have many Polish people in our country. It could be 8 million. We love our Polish friends, and I will be there soon.
Yeah.
A lot of people make light bulb jokes. I won't. I want to congratulate them.
A lot of people know exactly how many.
Congratulations on your 80th anniversary of being invaded. In fact, many of your population probably emigrated to this country in part because it was so destroyed in that invasion and occupation.
Also, congratulations on having 8 million of you over here, too.
That's
Maybe
right.
Up your numbers a little bit. Help me out.
Really great. Really great. We can knock those numbers down, though, in our phase 2 former immigrant culling that we're going to do.
There's so many Polacks. They're everywhere. And I have a tremendous message for them. Congratulations. You can't change a light bulb, but you can get invaded. No, I'm just a little R&R. Rest and relaxation. But look, there's a big hurricane, and that bitch, Deborah Messing, keeps tweeting at me.
I'm sorry. I feel
let's go to the phones.
The
Call
light
from
bulb
a
with invasion is too much historical information for a Trump homage.
Calling from a 602 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, hi, this is Kyle from Phoenix.
Kyle from Phoenix, what's on your mind?
Hey, I just had two things I want to talk to you about. The first one was I'm 100% behind you when I think that Bernie Sanders is going to end up winning this thing. I also think that the corporate class and the Democrats and the media, I don't think they fully realized how strong this socialist, populist wave is. And I was listening to some Richard Wolff, and he said the last time it was this big was back in the 20s. And after FDR died, the, billionaires, corporate class, they pushed hard, obviously, for the last 60, 70 years to try and get rid of all of those populist movements that were made. What do you think? Because I don't think they've realized how big this move is yet. Once they do realize that this isn't going away, what do you think their next move is going to be? Because obviously they haven't realized it yet. When they do realize how big it is, how hard do you think they're going to push? How do you think they're going to push? Because that kind of got me a little worried, to be honest.
What are you worried of?
Well, I just think that when the people who are in power right now realize how big this wave is, that, like I said, the last time it was this big, we got, Medicare, unemployment, all the stuff the FDR pushed in the New Deal. I don't think they realize it's that big again. And I do. I 100% think it is that big. I don't think when they do realize it, I think it's going to be a huge push to try and, maybe smear Bernie Sanders even harder than they already are, which is kind of hard to do, or, whatever their tactics are going to be. But I think when they realize how big this populist movement is, that they're going to put it into overdrive.
I don't think they're going to make that. I don't think that realization is going to come for a while. And I don't think, frankly, I think to the extent that, if I had to just speculate, I don't think that they're going to have that realization. I think that they're, my guess would be, and, I can think of a lot worse things happening, but my guess would be that if they thought that Bernie Sanders was going to win, they would support Elizabeth Warren. That would be the smart thing to do at that point.
Even after he wins the primary? When he wins the primary.
Well, I don't think that there's going to be a winner of this primary season early. I don't think that we're going to have a sense like in March, let's say. I mean, I can tell you that professional, political people, even people who were very, very sympathetic to Bernie Sanders, felt that in February of 2016 that like you're not going to win this. But I don't think that we're going to have a similar situation. I think people are not going. People may have opinions in February of 2016, but I think they're going to be divergent. And so I think really it's going to be a question at the, going into the convention. I think it's conceivable. I mean, every year people say that, but I don't think there's going to be something like. Well, I don't know, but I think that people are going to probably, if they're smart, they'll say vote for Elizabeth Warren. If they want, like Joe Biden getting elected is not going to slow the roll of any move to the left. I think this is a generational thing. I just think that this is coming. The question is like, how much can you co-opt?
I agree.
I would just say maybe outside of a presidential, well, I will say, I think it does underline how important and distinct Sanders is, that he really is the ultimate threat to these people, and that's a very strong argument for him.
Absolutely.
But more broadly, I want to be really careful about this because I don't mean this in any kind of conscious and conspiratorial sense, but I do think that if you look at this sort of some of the patterns globally, and the United States has more circuit breakers than other countries, but if you even look at state laws against protesting, you look at a lot of moves to restrict the things that the state of Dakota was doing against the water protectors, like rise of private security firms and things like that. I think that in a broader sense, when people realize that this might be a changing political dynamic, you really are going to have to, everybody should reread Democracy in Chains and look at some of the kind of trends towards formally inhibiting democracy, even if it's not as, overt as some type of authoritarian takeover. I think that's what people really need to be looking to. And it does. And of course, there's going to be a huge amount of lies and smears about Bernie. That's going to be ongoing. But I think the bigger structural question is when all of a sudden more people want to protest and they look at the laws in the books and they're like, wait a second. You can't really protest anymore. I mean, that stuff's been happening for years, and that's what I would look at.
Appreciate the call.
So you're saying more on like the idea of after. Okay, but
I'm talking now.
My second point, real quick, if that's okay. It's just that I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and we all know that one of the Koch brothers just died. Woohoo! And they're still they're pushing a Prop 105 and 106 right now because we just got a light rail passed, and we're building it. It's doing really well. They're trying to make it illegal here for us to build more light rails, and I heard they're doing it all over the country. Oh. So I just wanted to put it out there. Vote no on Prop 105. Vote no on Prop 106. Don't believe any of those lies that they say on the ads. They're horrible for the future of the state of the city.
I appreciate the call.
Thank you.
I was just in Austin, Texas this weekend, and there's no real infrastructure for public transportation out there. And I was talking to people about it. It's very hard to get done. And every time you drive around a city like that on a Saturday night, there's a car wreck on a highway. It's a public safety issue. It's a public health issue.
War on cars, baby.
Cars are not good.
Here is Elizabeth Warren, and she's playing this, very smartly as well. She realizes that she is on one end of the ledger from Joe Biden and wants to make sure that if she does not alienate Bernie Sanders supporters. And here she is making that argument that to the extent that there's any daylight between our positions, I don't feel we need to talk about it.
At some point, are you going to bag the non-aggression pact and just start drawing more distinctions?
Bernie and I have been friends for many, many years, long before I ever got in politics. And I don't see any reason that should change.
But don't you want to make it easier for voters who are wondering how to make a decision?
Look, I get out every day and try to meet as many voters as I can and talk about why I'm in this race, to talk about my vision, to talk about what's broken, to talk about my plans to fix it, and to talk about how I'm building a grassroots movement to get it done. I think that's what voters want to hear. What's your positive message? What is it you want to do as President of the United States? And I'm trying to make that clear every single day. People know why I'm in this fight and what I'll be fighting for.
Senator, I think if you were to ask Bernie Sanders the exact same question, I think you would get almost the verbatim the same answer.
He did sometime over the break give essentially that.
Yeah, I mean, that is basically how Bernie has, approached most of his campaigns. I think, Warren, I think they are genuinely friends, and I think they have a respect for each other on policy grounds.
And it does seem like they're in a sort of formation on this primary deal.
Well, I think they know that the key is to get Joe Biden out, and then, if you watch any Survivor episode, what's happening here is pretty clear.
They should have. And I also think there's nothing wrong with people who support both of them having clearly articulating the disagreements there.
Yeah,
and I think because even I think the pattern of now sort of echoing the movement argument is very noticeable to me, and I will articulate that. But it doesn't mean that at the end of the day. Obviously, hopefully, there will be some type of formalized alliance between them. I'm just clear who I want to be at the, on the top of that alliance, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, let me put it this way too. I would say there's nothing that Bernie is doing in terms of building a movement that I don't think. I mean, that movement. Let me put it this way: the movement that he is building under a President Biden will serve a very different function than it would under a President Warren.
And serve a totally different function under President Sanders
as well.
Yes.
But I would imagine the dynamic between that movement and Sanders and the dynamic between Warren and that movement would not be nearly as different as it would be under Biden. I think there would be a lot more coordination, frankly, because I think there's a lot of people, personnel involved in both those campaigns who are far more communicative with each other than they are with the Biden people. And I don't think that would change in the context of an administration. But as we said, on September 12th at 8 p.m. on ABC News and Univision, and the Majority Report, probably on Twitch. We will have Amy Klobuchar, Cory Booker, Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Andrew Yang, Beto O'Rourke, Julian Castro will be on the debate stage. Absent from that stage will be Tulsi Gabbard, among 11 other people, or 10 other people still in the race. God bless we don't have John Delaney to kick around anymore. I'm so glad that dude's not there. And there have been people who have been claiming that the system is rigged against Tulsi Gabbard, that they were willing to take out all those other moderates, I guess, to keep her off the stage was the idea. It's worth getting rid of Bullock. It's worth getting rid of Tom Steyer. It's worth getting rid of John Delaney. It's worth getting rid of, who else is it? Seth Moulton, I think he dropped out. Slalwell, it's worth getting rid of all those people if we can get rid of Gabbard. Now, of course, they made these rules. I think a lot of people assumed that she would make it, frankly. I certainly was one who thought that she would.
She has no life.
But she is not dropping out, and good. I think that's fine. There's a couple of points that she makes that I think are decent to be made. I hope she doesn't speak up too much about Kashmir, but because I'm not sure I would like what she would say. But here's Tulsi Gabbard.
I was laughing the other day when I started hearing from a lot of people in the media when they said, okay, you didn't make the third debate, are you quitting? Like, hell no! Hell no! And if any of them had been listening to what I've been saying about what this movement is about and why I'm running for president and what is at stake, they would understand why we are here and why we will never quit.
That's good. I mean, I think I would much rather her staying in the race than John Delaney.
I mean, no kidding. And frankly, like, I'm all for fewer debates with fewer people, but
I'm for more debates with fewer people.
Fewer and fewer, sir. But Amy Klobuchar and not Tulsi Gabbard, give me a break.
Well, it's just a numbers. It's just a numbers thing.
I know, but of
I
course,
would have
if you go down that rabbit hole, there's a whole dispute about which numbers you're looking at. And I'll just say it's like you with Brexit, although I will say Brexit is far more important than this. I don't know, and I don't care.
No, they at the beginning of this process, they picked a bunch of polls that were going to be polls that they used to assess, and they were going to look at donation numbers. And
but how is Klobuchar? I mean, Klobuchar is at 1% in the polls.
She's a senator.
Well, that's a different criteria. They didn't say that.
No, I'm saying that's what I think explains her poll numbers.
But she's at 1% in the polls. I'm saying her polling average is literally at 1%.
I thought donor base though, because 1-2. Well, I don't like.
So
the weird thing is, like, Klobuchar had Minnesota entirely locked down. That map was purple for her.
It was certain polls.
In terms of
it was certain polls, so it's not just the poll number. They said these are polls that we look at, and these are not. Frankly, I would have preferred 8 people, so that you would lose Klobuchar, and frankly, you would probably lose Castro. It looks like in terms of numbers.
No, you wouldn't lose Yang, frankly. Yang has gotten himself right to the mid-tier. I mean, he's done that.
Yep.
But I just, to me, it's like, if we're having Castro and Klobuchar as a qualitative assessment, have Tulsi Gabbard.
Well, that's the whole point. It's not a qualitative assessment. It's quantitative.
Right.
Which is,
I guess.
Same beanbag.
It's quantitative in the sense that the Washington Post fact checkers are quantitative. I mean,
no, it's not.
I don't know about that. Look, I know you have more trust in it than I do. I'm not sure.
What's the trust? It was announced. We knew this 6 months, 6 weeks ago.
If you go into this rabbit hole, there's a reason some people are whining about it. I don't care. I don't care.
I know there's a reason why people are whining about it.
Well,
but
they
say
that there's different polls, there's different
But
numbers.
This was all predetermined before.
I understand, but they're still deciding. There's still at some point somebody deciding what is and isn't going to make it through.
Of course.
Right.
But the rules are set 6 to 8 weeks ago.
Yeah, guess what? Those people are way more threatened by Bernie Sanders than they are by Tulsi. This is an important part for the Tulsi fans. Like, those people that are fixing all this allegedly are way more threatened by Bernie Sanders. He's still beating it. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
He's beating
this
it
is this is what I think is problematic. It's one thing because we're getting into this sort of the rigged thing again, which was incredibly destructive, but also incredibly inaccurate. 6 weeks ago, they say, if you score above a certain threshold in these, 12 polls, or 3 of these 12 polls, because we're choosing which polls we're going to go by, because you can't start your own polling outfit and say, look, I got 6%. So they've got to decide which polls it is that they're going to say are legit. Nobody knows 6 to 8 weeks ago where people were in these polls anyways. And you've got to hit, 130,000 donors.
Right. I mean, so basically, Gabbard and Marianne hit the donor requirements, but they didn't hit the polling requirements from the polls they used.
I think you could argue that, look, you should allow 12 people on stage, or you should allow 8 people on stage, but that's just as arbitrary too.
basically what you can see from this whole exchange is that Sam gets even more money from the DNC than me.
Yeah, well, it's also the sort of thing like if you have a
He's
movement,
a corrupt hack.
If your movement relies on the rules being in your favor on crap like
Right.
this,
If your whole argument rests on how come the ref didn't call the play that way.
Well,
I mean,
here's
and
the
I
other
will
thing.
say,
If
especially in a
people don't
Brazil
think-
world, I do find the rhetoric. I have no problem complaining about things and talking about bias, but the rhetoric of like rigging and stolen in a Brazil world, guys, you need to chill out a little bit.
It's also incredibly disempowering because there is no solution to this. This is you start getting into Alex Jones territory, where like the Bilderberger group is controlling everything, so it doesn't matter what we do. And
that might be true.
If anybody out there thinks that the Democratic Party was more interested in getting rid of Tulsi Gabbard from that stage versus keeping John Delaney. Okay? Because if anything, if there's any impetus, they want to protect Joe Biden. And John Delaney's the only one who's going to be able to do that.
And this is really going to piss Tulsi people off. Not only they want to protect Joe Biden, and actually Tulsi was protecting Joe Biden. If you watch the debate,
I mean, so like it's just
she did a great job on Kamala, though. I'll give her that.
Yeah, this stuff is. I'm happy she's not dropping out of the race. Like I say, I would have rather seen 8 people in the debate than 10. I for all I care, I don't have to hear anything that Amy Klobuchar says for as long as I live. I mean, it's all right down the middle and boring stuff, and it's not moving the ball forward.
The only interesting thing is her staff abuse. We all know this.
But the talk of rigging and this and that is grifters. It's grifters. Honestly.
God damn it.
Well, it's just because that stuff I thought was also just sort of, it was lame last time. It's even lamer this time. Let's go to the phones. God, it's tough to control this thing. Calling from a 406 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam, this is Brennan from Montana.
Brennan, what's on your mind?
Well, first, I just wanted to give a big thanks to Matt and Michael. They recommended an audiobook for me a month or two back. It was a Bhaskar Sankara Socialist Manifesto. Really, really good book. I recommend that to everybody also. I kind of just really wanted to touch on something that, funnily enough, John from San Antonio mentioned. And that was Wilmot Collins from Montana. I don't know if you have many, probably not, listeners, viewers from Montana or the area.
Stop it. Of course
he was actually brought up. He was actually brought up in a couple of articles from The Intercept. He's a Liberian refugee. He came here during the Civil War there and was like on the brink of starvation. And right now he's up against Republican Steve Daines. And I think he's got a really good chance. I don't see on his website, Wilmot Collins that is, he's not very specific, and I haven't seen too many public appearances and questions to really know. But he says he's for Medicare for all, whether that's a single-payer, Bernie-style Medicare for all. I'm not really sure. But it's way better than a Steve Daines, if you know anything about him.
I don't. I can imagine. It's Montana.
He was the lone last standing person that was in support of Donald Trump's comments about the 4 congresswomen to go back to their countries or whatever. So he was the only person in a closed room meeting with all Republicans that defended Donald Trump there. So that gives you an idea. And he's also funded by the Koch brothers, or I guess I could say the Koch brothers.
Koch brother.
But
Boy,
I just wanted to point everybody out there. It's wilmotcollins.com. Even if you're not in the area, you can still donate. And that was about it.
All right, appreciate the call. wilmotcollins.com.
It's a good write-up of him in The Intercept. It's an interesting candidacy for sure.
Calling from a 484 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Sam. It's Mitchell from the Poconos in Pennsylvania.
Mitchell from the Poconos. What's on your mind, Mitchell?
So most of the people in this area, or not, at least the ones that I interact with, have 2 jobs to get by.
And I work for a restaurant. My owner is a small business owner. He has a couple of restaurants in the area. And whenever I bring up the subject of raising the minimum wage, which the House has passed, so let's keep that moving forward, but, Mitch.
Right.
He says that he's going to have to, raise prices, fire employees, businesses are going to close. The unemployment's going to go up if the wage goes up, and I know that that's not going to happen. I know that it's going to benefit the economy, but how do I explain it to a small business owner who's trying to protect his profits and paying, lower wages?
You don't.
But I mean, small business owners are, a large part of the middle class.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I think I just think that speaking as a small business owner myself, you're always worried, right? That something's going to happen. And,
what?
I think I don't wake up in the middle of the night and think YouTube's going to demonetize us or something like that. I just don't think you're going to be able to convince him beyond saying look, you know what? People have the same fear in Seattle. There are studies out there that basically show that it's not going to create the problems that he thinks it is. He can raise the prices because a lot of the people who eat at his restaurant are going to be making more money, or their family members are. And so people are going to feel a little more flush. I think the only thing you could show them a couple of studies and say it's not going to be as bad as you think it is, and it's something actually that will create some growth.
I mean, he has the idea that his employees, most of us, are working to live. These aren't just side jobs. We're making starvation wages, essentially, and he's saying that it just means that we need to work harder or we need to get more jobs or whatever, but it's you're right. It doesn't register with the people.
He doesn't care. I mean, he doesn't want it to eat into his profits. I mean, that's basically it.
Yeah.
And I can understand that's not such a foreign idea.
Do I ever?
No, it's you can't, I understand the concept of I want more money in my pocket, not less. That's not, that's not Greek. It's just sorry, dude. Sorry.
But ultimately, if the wage was to go up for everybody, there would be a stimulated economy, and he would make more money in the long run.
Well, he might.
It's hard for me to think that he doesn't.
He might, or he might just make the same, or he might make a little less. I don't know. I mean, who's to say? But the fact of the matter is, you just told me that his employees are barely eking by. And so you know what, dude?
One of them just lost their house.
Raise the prices on your food and pay people more. I mean, put less
I got
in your
one more
pocket.
question for you, because you're right. If he raises the prices, people will still be able to afford it, and he could pay us more money. But another argument that I often have with him is the welfare state. It's how he says that the problem, and my managers have this issue too, is that people are eating my tax dollars, and I see it all the time when I deliver to people. They don't work, or they just order beer for every day of the week. Is it a problem, the welfare state? And if it is, how do we fix that?
Are there people who are abusing the system? I would imagine.
100%. Yeah,
but
I know there are.
Well, but how much? How many? And what system is not abused?
Oh no, I get that. I say that like there's going to be people who are not going to get off their butt and work, but for like the majority of it, it's a safety net.
Right. I mean, I don't know how much money on food assistance, like you think people get, but it's,
Are you the restaurant owner, sir? Are you secretly the restaurant owner?
No, not wish, man.
No, man.
Like every time a customer walks in that we know is on government assistance or is homeless or something and buys beer, and they just
homeless?
get like a disgusted look on their face.
Well, how much? What kind of funding do you think a homeless person is getting?
They get about $50 a day to pick up trash in the Poconos. It's called Pick Up the Poconos.
So they're working. They get paid. They get paid to work, and they buy beer. Do you have an issue with other people who come in with their paycheck and buy beer?
I don't have an issue with it, but they do.
Your owners do. The owners do. Well, they should turn away everybody who comes in who buys beer.
Like they seem to have this like higher.
I got news for you. If I spent my days picking up the trash in the Poconos and I had no home, I would probably take my $50 and drink.
I mean, yeah, there's not to mention the
Sam drinks a lot anyways, sir.
People around here is pretty hostile to the homeless. So
well, you know what, dude? Here's the answer I have for you. The people you work for, they're a-holes.
They're bad people. They're not.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, there's no convincing them. So just tell them not to worry. They don't even have to go out and vote because there's no way any of this stuff is going to pass. That's the way I would convince them.
Crazy Bernie.
Appreciate the call. Thanks. I would just tell, in those situations, the best thing you can do is just tell them, like, you guys got no problems. I wouldn't even vote. Nothing's ever going to change.
Trump's going to worry about it.
God, everybody agrees with you. Those guys who spend the day picking up trash and get $50, they shouldn't be allowed to spend it on booze at your booze store. I love the morale.
They might actually be more frightened of that.
The moralizing from people like, I wouldn't sell to people who don't deserve their alcohol.
You know how hard it's been to convince Sam that people deserve to be members of this podcast? It's exhausting.
Yeah, it's one thing.
They don't deserve the password.
It's one thing that Lula's saying, like the elite in Brazil were complaining about airports looking like bus stops, but to complain about beer stores, like,
they're buying beer
with money
they're
they
living
earned.
Large with money they earned.
I got news
with
for
the
you.
least
It's
desirable
not a
job
government handout
imaginable.
to work all day for $50. Picking up trash, that's not a government handout. Damn. Look, I love this idea that, though, that, I mean, you can't, the idea that, well, I'm trying to segue into this, but here's somebody who I know also has a problem with certain morality. I love the morality that we're being preached. It's just a whole set of, this is a woman who apparently is she's sitting on the city council, is it? Oh, she's running for city council.
Hopeful.
Oh, okay. Are you sure? Is she a candidate? Is she not a member of the city council? You sure about that? At the very least, she's running for re-election in Marysville, Michigan. And my sense of Michigan largely is about white people wanting to make sure that black people don't get their tax dollars is like an animating factor in Michigan. And it breaks down on city lines. And when you get stuff like these emergency takeovers of cities and whatnot, so much of it is about that. There is a story I have about Flint that those kids who grew up during that era of the lead poisoning, the number of kids in special education today versus 5 or 6 years ago is up by 56%. It was a 10 or 11%, I think, about 7 years ago, and now it's at about 20, 25%. Kids needing, basically with special education needs. And of course, the system is completely taxed. The teachers are completely taxed. I don't mean actually paying tax. I mean that they're physically overtaxed. 1 in 5 students in Flint's public schools are eligible for special education. The percentage of special education students has increased by 56%, rising from 13.1 in 2013 to, which is the school year before the water crisis began, to 20.5% last year. Schools are understaffed, teachers are overwhelmed, parents are frustrated. And here is a woman,
a former candidate for the city council in Marysville, Michigan. She's since withdrawn.
She's dropped out over the week. Based upon her sense of, her keep Marysville great again. Here it is.
People criticizing you for your comment. Well, tell us exactly what you said yesterday. You talked about you didn't believe in, you wanted to, what did you want to happen with Marysville? You wanted it to stay a certain way. Tell us about that.
Well, we like Marysville the way it is. But as far as having a black couple moving in, we have no problem with that. But where it's wrong is when you have a white woman and a black husband, a white wife and a black husband together. That's wrong, and vice versa.
Well, and why is that?
It's simply against the Bible. Like I was telling her, God created Adam and Eve, same kind, same race all around, and that's how He wants that. He's our example, right?
I am not an expert at the Bible, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't like Adam and Eve, same kind, same race. I don't think that. I do remember where it said that they were lily white, and when the Bible said something to the effect of we said Adam and Eve, not Adam and Letitia, or something like that.
What is this, West Side Story? Oh, my bad, you don't know about that yet.
Just keep this in mind. When you're a jet all the way.
You'll understand this thousands of years from now.
Telling her, God created Adam and Eve, same kind, same race all around, and that's how He wants that. He's our example right there.
Talk about what you want. What is it you want Marysville to stay? You said something in particular that you wanted it to stay white. Tell us about that.
Well, just that. It's a nice city the way it is. We have
meaning white.
If black people, if a black couple wants to move in, fine. Mm-hmm. But to have the mixed marriage, no.
Talk about though, but why then say it should stay white? Then talk about and that's okay if you feel like that. I mean, as far as a journalist,
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think? I mean, you're entitled to your opinion. Why do you think Marysville should stay white?
We like it the way it is. When we moved here, we didn't know anything about it initially, and we have just been comfortable with the way it is.
Is there anything anyone could say to change your mind?
Well, like I say, if a black wife and a black husband move in, no problem. It's just the intermarriage.
And the foreign-borns.
Mm-hmm.
And the foreign-borns. Well, obviously. Right, of course. Because you know how God said in the Bible, we don't take immigrants. There's no stories in the Bible at all about foreign-born people coming into, let's say, Egypt, right? There's nothing along those lines. or coming in from the land of into the land of Canaan. I only know the old version.
We only know the best version.
That lady should start a right-wing podcast.
Honestly,
I don't think she really has the charisma for it, dude.
Oh, I don't know. She's got the line down. Like, well, we accept that black people are here, so we'll deal with that, but no foreigners.
It's not the race I'm concerned with. It's the mixing of the races that I'm concerned with. So I'm not racist. I'm just, for clarity. Organization, that's what I like. I don't like chaos.
Why is everything about race for you people?
I don't understand why she had to drop out. Why can't she have a conversation about this and present her ideas?
What I don't understand is why everything's about race for you people. She's talking about marriage. You make it about race.
Exactly.
You're upset.
Exactly. Constantly about race. Since we're on the right-wing lunatic, let's go to Ben Shapiro interviewed Liz Wheeler of the One America Network.
Wow. I thought he was supposed to be top tier.
Now, he's interviewing her for this. Now, they must have some type of like tie-in deal or something. Oh, she's got a book. So this is the tit for tat. You have me on, I'll have you on type of thing. And this is the way that we grow our shows.
He has great posture.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Makes him look tall, too.
Yeah. In fact, I think they actually lowered her seat. It looks like her seat's a little bit lower than his, but that's all right.
Make sure that she's cold and uncomfortable.
So this is on the Ben Shapiro Sunday Showcase. And, I'm old enough to remember when George W. Bush got in front of a national primetime television audience and said with a heavy heart, because they must protect the traditional marriage and the family unit, that he wants to promote an amendment to the Constitution to prevent gay people from marrying the people they want to marry. And he said it with a heavy heart. And then they lost the salience of that as an electoral issue, and then they moved on to transgender folks.
Why are you guys obsessed?
Here we go.
There's something that the left has forgotten about. It's called objective truth. There are two genders, male and female. It's coded within our DNA. It's not bigoted to say that. It's not intolerant to say that. It's a simple...
I mean, I don't want to get, I don't want to be a pederast here. But gender...
Pedant. You think
pedant.
You certainly don't want to be a pederast.
I don't want to be a pederast.
I don't want to be a pederast here, but let me just say about gender.
But that is not true. That gender that is a major category error.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's like a category. I'm sorry. That's like a category error that doesn't even require any like new postmodern. Like that is medically, historically not true.
Yes.
Right. It's not a controversial
That is
point
not
at
even
all.
in the realm of
She might as well have
we're
said,
debating this stuff in a forum. That's not true.
She might as well have said like something to the effect of like, look, everyone knows that a preference for pink is coded in your DNA as opposed to a preference for blue, which is why we put babies, girl babies in pink and boy babies in blue.
Yeah, the simpler response to this sort of claptrap is just, can you historicize gender for me briefly?
Right, exactly. But Ben Shapiro, incidentally, the intellectual pillar of the right, I guess he just missed class that day at Harvard.
There are two genders, male and female. It's coded within our DNA. It's not bigoted to say that. It's not intolerant to say that. It's a simple matter of biology. I will never let the left shut me up from saying that because it is the truth no matter what they say. Again, conservatives should offer a tremendous amount of compassion to people suffering from gender dysphoria because they deserve our compassion. That must be an incredible burden to feel that you are trapped in the wrong body, to feel that you are a different gender. That's a legitimate psychiatric disorder, and we should treat these people with dignity and respect and love. But treating them with dignity and respect and love is not allowing them to be used as political pawns for the left's political agenda. And that's what the left is doing. They are trying to exploit these people under the guise of saying they're tolerant, under the guise of saying they're trying that, we're trying to include transgender people in polite society. The left is actually exploiting
Pause it for
them.
1 second. Okay, so I just want you to follow this because I can tell she sat down and had to work this out because this is a really, you're going the long way to get there. Just to be clear, this is also something you hear that the left does with black people as well, and immigrants. They feel pity for these people because they're being exploited by the Democrats and the left, and who don't really want to tolerate them and don't. It's not really about getting them rights and allowing them to actualize and be and for people to be able to reach their potential and to be happy and be respected. It's not really about that. Well, then you've got to ask, like, why would the Democrats or the left or whoever it is, why would they exploit these people in this way? What would they gain?
Guise of saying they're trying that, we're trying to include transgender people in polite society. The left is actually exploiting them, and we shouldn't let them do that because it's part of their larger scheme, if you will, their larger scheme to undermine the family. Because when you advocate for transgenderism, meaning when you do that politically, what you're doing is you're saying that there's no real gender roles, right? And if there's no traditional gender roles, then there can't be any traditional relationships. If there's no traditional relationships, then there can't be a traditional marriage. If there's not a traditional marriage, then there can't be a traditional family unit. If there's not a traditional family unit, then everybody in our nation is rendered dependent on the government, which conservatives identify as the ultimate goal of many Democratic politicians. They want money and they want power, and to do that, they control the people.
Honestly, I would like to graph that out. Because you know what was great there was what I would call the cascade. If there's if it's possible that there are non-traditional gender roles, then there are no traditional gender roles. And if there's no traditional gender roles, there's no traditional relationships. And if there's no traditional relationships, there's no traditional families. And if there's no traditional families, then there's no traditional support structures. Just sort of like these steps that you take that because the diction is the same, that they necessarily are true. You're picking these, which is why, of course, when the Obama administration made that ruling and reminded schools that they needed to have allow transgender people to go into the bathrooms that is consistent with their gender, that is why the divorce rate skyrocketed in the wake of that. Except for, of course, it did not.
Then there's no family.
Right. That's the argument.
Then you walk down the street, then pink is blue, then blue is pink, then there's no family, then everyone's gay, then the government
takes over because everybody's gay.
Which is why you should buy this supplement.
Right.
So we got to privatize Social Security to protect the trans people.
Yeah. Now we can't privatize Social Security because people are trans.
There you go. So there it is. All right, let's round out this right-wing stooges. Speaking of which, there are still some people who are trying to weaponize homophobia, not just transgenderism. And that's these 3 or 4 schlubs. Now, wait a second. Is the guy, I can't figure out, there's the guy who's got Santa Claus and he's got his own selfie stick. Then there's the other dude who's got the oversized suit. And then there's the other guy who's got the oversized belly. And then there's a security guard, I guess, next to him. But did they all shave their heads for this or what? This is a pre-straight pride march in Boston. You know, I mean, it's just these guys trying to be funny on some level, but also just trying to professionally troll. This got a tremendous amount of attention and news across the country. I mean, we heard about this months and months ago. And it turns out they did this the day after they had the parade. 200 people showed up. 200 people. And there were 600 protesters. Like, how bad of an idea do you have that only 200 people show up when you get this amount of press, right? I mean, that's stunning. But when you hear these guys talk, you realize, like, incompetent. Here we go.
And the world is clown world. The world's gone crazy because there's nothing wrong with being straight.
You may say one thing, if you weren't straight, you wouldn't be here, buddy. Remember that.
John, a little background on you, sir?
Pause it for 1 second. Now, I hate to be a pedant, but there are instances where gay people have had straight sex and had children. In fact,
yeah, I bet. Welcome to the world, Sam Cena.
Yes.
Boom!
Oscar Wilde or what?
Yeah. But here is I don't know where this reporter is from. Who is it? Do we know who this guy is? He's asking these dolts.
He's asking some hard-hitting questions.
Yeah.
They
These
actually
dolts
really are.
some questions, and it's pretty good, actually. They weren't quite prepared for this.
John, a little background on you, sir?
Thanks, Anna.
John, a little background on you? You worked for Eddie Tutunjian, convicted felon for 35 years. Are you going to say that you knew nothing of his nefarious activities, sir?
One question at a time, sir. Please, don't be so rude.
I worked for a convicted felon, so now I am guilty of the same.
No, I asked you if you knew anything about his nefarious activities in the 35 years you worked for him.
No, none whatsoever.
But you've spoken in support of him in the past, sir.
I do like him. He's a nice guy. He always treated me well.
Okay.
How many people are you expecting?
Hopefully about 1,000, we think. It depends. You know, a lot of it depends on how you report this. If you scare people, it might have a depressing effect on the parade.
We have hundreds of people that are registered, and they're coming from all over the world and all over the United States.
So
Pause it. I just want to reiterate, that's not something you brag about. We've got hundreds of people registered from all over the world. In the entire world of homophobia and trolling, we got a couple hundred.
Brian Riccio, it looks like this is the cameraman.
Oh, Brian Riccio. Okay, the cameraman. All right.
And all over the United States.
So that's what we know so far. It's our first parade, so who knows? If it was just me and Mark, we said we're going to march.
He's playing the expectations game.
Yeah, there you go.
Doesn't matter. We have a point to make, and we think it's okay to be straight. That's all, and there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make you a hater. And if people are saying that, it's just bizarre. What the heck's wrong with being straight? We think it's great to be straight. We say don't hate the straight.
We have to say that the taxpayers are upset that city resources are going to be wasted because you three guys can't get laid.
How funny is that? What are you, an idiot? You are an idiot.
You've had your question.
You're an idiot.
Hey, you said I had a heckler's right, didn't I?
Go back to Philadelphia, your girlfriend. What's her name again in Philadelphia? Your girlfriend's, what's her name?
What?
Please, Rob, stop interrupting, please.
Shithead.
I'm sorry, what, sir? What?
Hey, no more questions for this guy. He's not a serious reporter. Ma'am.
You said media, sir.
Carry situation that led to a raid on the schools.
There you go.
City resource is going to be wasted because you guys can't get laid.
I love when the Santa guy tries to like go after his girlfriend and everyone says, just let it go. You're not winning this.
Right, exactly. Well, you know what? I'll tell you something why I like this is because it's so petty. That comment's so petty. But for guys like this, like I grew up with guys like this. For them, that's like, that cuts. That is like...
That's exactly. I mean, honestly, it cuts so much. Especially the guy who's kind of good-natured. The guy in Aviators is laughing.
Well, yeah.
I feel for him.
Should we watch it again?
Dude.
Yeah, let's just watch it one more time.
If people are saying that, it's just bizarre. What the heck's wrong with being straight? We think it's great to be straight. We say don't hate the straight.
We have to say that the taxpayers are upset that city resources are going to be wasted because you three guys can't get laid.
Funny what kind of question what are you, an idiot? You are an idiot.
You've had your question.
You're an idiot.
Hey, you said I had to heckle his right, didn't I?
Go back to Philadelphia, your girlfriend. What's her name again in Philadelphia? Your girlfriend's, what's her name?
What?
Santa, it's not going to work.
Oh, what?
Santa, it's not going to happen.
Girlfriend from Philadelphia.
Yeah, you go
That guy,
Philadelphia.
Santa, is feeling very sensitive.
Yeah,
'cause it's been a
Santa,
long
it's not.
time.
You know what happened is
It's not
they had some
happening,
oppo on whoever that reporter was, and he was trying to say like, "We know where your girlfriend's from, buddy." Don't you think that's what he's doing there? Your girlfriend from
maybe.
Philly, and then it's like, "You want to try something like that?" And he's like, "God, you're blowing the oppo, buddy."
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's
wasting taxpayer dollars because you can't get laid. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Enjoy it. I have a feeling Ken and Ken probably very excited about these guys. We'll see.
Not after they got faced like that. You can't be associated with that. You could just
Right.
the stench of loser. Ooh.
Those guys don't get laid.
Yeah. I was there with the spirit, but they didn't represent it well.
Let's hear Andrew Yang. Look, to be fair to Yang, I think that he's probably running to promote the idea of a UBI, and I think in some respects also helpfully demonstrates that a UBI can go one of two ways. Not always necessarily the way that we'd want it to go on the left. There's reasons why Milton Friedman was a big fan of UBI. Nevertheless, you got to expect, particularly if you're in the second, if you make it to the top tier of the debate, right? There's been 12, 15 legit candidates who have been jettisoned from the island, at least of the debates. You got to be prepared to answer some foreign policy questions. And here's Andrew Yang responding to questions about what he would do in regards to foreign aid and Israel.
So in terms of the money we're giving to an ally like Israel, my first instinct would be like, why would we reduce it? And so certainly if I communicated something else, like that's not the idea at all. There are certain relationships we have that, to me, we need to rebuild and strengthen. And I would suggest that our relationship with Israel is one of them.
And what about the Arabs?
You'd have to look at it on a case by case and say, like, what's happening in terms of our bilateral relationship with a particular party. But my zeal is to try and build strong alliances and partnerships. If someone's been working with us for a long time, they should feel like they're being rewarded for that, frankly. And then if someone has an interest in working with us, we should be open to rewarding that too. But for each country, you'd have to look at what's going on at that time and what the lead-in has been.
So when it comes to land in Israel that's being taken, even though it was granted to certain Palestinian families by the UN, how do you feel about constricting Israel almost to prevent that from happening, and constricting political influence by American leaders in Israel?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but I'll answer it more generally, which is, like, my stance on this is that it's going to be hard for the United States to constrict, like, an ally or really just about any of its partners in a decision that they feel is central to them. And I don't think that's our priority. It's not that we're somehow giving people aid so that we can then twist their arm about things that that they find important.
I got to say, this seems to be a complete fundamental misunderstanding of what foreign policy is. First off, he perceives our relationships with other countries as if we were business partners. And that, A, we don't have any national security interests. B, that we don't have any guiding principles or that we hope to essentially, even pretend to promote around the world. I mean, look, if, we hear a lot that we need to support Israel because it's the only democracy in the Middle East. Now, I think that is a pretty dubious claim in terms of it being a democracy, or at least depends on how loose you want to define democracy. But if that is the case, well, what's the point? We want to promote democracy, or we want to promote anything else? Do we want to promote democracy in Palestine? Do we want to promote democracy in other places? The idea that we don't, that the United States has not attempted to constrict allies, I mean, all countries, but allies, their behavior, that's just absurd. That's exactly what you do. You try and get their policies to align with yours.
I mean, I just want to elaborate. One is that this is actually basically the same thing that he said essentially to Mehdi Hassan when he was given an opportunity to get foreign policy questions several months ago. So I don't think it's definitely not just that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's that, and frankly, look, he's a corporate centrist Democrat from Manhattan. It's not terribly surprising he'd have a Likudnik position. And that is the other thing that I do want to say. That
Did he really not understand that question about Palestinians being dispossessed?
No, I think he understood that. That's my point. I mean, I'm going back to this Mehdi Hassan interview. He's got a right-wing position on those issues. And I will say, it's absolutely not terribly. It's certainly the same as everybody from the delegation from New York. They all basically say the same thing. Even if they nod at some point towards vaguely acknowledging the obscene human rights violations there. You hear that all the time. Oh, you can't do that to Israel. You know, if you pressure Israel, they'll get even more scared, like some type of cornered animal or something. So I think, Andrew Yang does, in fact, like a lot of other issues. It's very odd that he doesn't feel a need to even just say like, hey, I'm basically running on one thing. He wants to say that he has viable positions on other things. And usually when he has viable positions on other things, they're to the hard right, particularly on these types of foreign policy stuff. So, that's just reality. I'm sure a lot of people will get freaked out by that, but that is what it is.
All right, let's go to the phones. You're calling from a 308 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Kowalski from Nebraska.
Hello, Kowalski. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm offended. Trump doesn't need to talk about pull-ups. But speaking of that crazed lunatic, just wanted to let your viewers know some ag news. The ethanol industry was basically betrayed over your guys' break, so farmers aren't too happy at him. And in catastrophic news, the carbon sink in Indonesia on the island of Java and the massive amounts of basically biological material in the Congo Basin are both pretty much on the chopping block for development. So basically you'd have 3 Brazil events all going on simultaneously. So it's kind of a bleak Tuesday.
Yeah, it is. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's this is another example of where, theoretically, a different type of leadership of the United States. I don't know if you would have gotten Bolsonaro in the first place with a different leadership in the United States. There might not be the same latitude and same sort of like willingness to have someone like that elected, because there would be some sense that perhaps Brazil would suffer some consequence.
Well, one thing to really keep in mind, though, is Indonesia is the world's largest Muslim nation, and they're a fairly moderate one, and this kind of rhetoric coming from the United States can be pretty disruptive to their intentions. I mean, they're not all sunshine and roses.
I just want to say on the Brazil
front,
front, it is very important, though, to, that the moves strongly that were put in place by the Obama administration set the stage for Bolsonaro. So that's an important other part of the equation.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if the Obama administration would
If you didn't have a DOJ-backed investigation that criminalized the party, that goes back to the Obama administration. If you didn't have a broader reversal of the pink tide, like the coup in Honduras, the Obama administration. You don't have an impeachment of Dilma that they don't object to, the Obama administration. I'm just saying, just as the center-right and the right-wing forces that did this in Brazil were thinking like, oh, and then we'll get elected. Well, you can't bank on that.
Right.
You do these things, there's consequences. In this case, the consequence is definitely going to be a candidate like Bolsonaro.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that it's without a doubt the context was set up, but the
elite in Brazil felt more comfortable if the biggest country in the world can elect an absolute buffoon jackass. Why can't we?
Exactly. I mean, I think we can't that's what I'm saying is that, the
just keep in mind, everybody needs to support the candidate that is going to push environmental issues on the international stage was basically all I was going to get to because, we're all on this spaceship together.
Yeah, it's true.
Vote
Appreciate
Bernie.
the call, Kowalski. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too. Congratulations, incidentally, on Poland's invasion. That was great. Calling from a 715 area code.
Oh, hey. This is Ufield from Wisconsin.
Ufield from Wisconsin? Hello, Ufield. What's on your mind?
I really don't want to sound like Jimmy Dore, but I kind of wanted to talk about the constant barrage and shaming of people who vote third party.
Okay.
And, well, so in Wisconsin last time, the turnout for the Democrats was really poor because, Hillary did not excite people. And as a result, so not only did she, did Wisconsin lose the state to Trump, but local elections were also affected.
Right. Feingold lost and then et cetera, but yes.
Right. And so, it's that's usually what happens with when you tell a lot of people, especially at least where I'm from, pick the lesser of two evils. That's just not usually how they operate in their day-to-day life. And so I was thinking, how would you solve this problem where that argument is just not going to resonate with the working class?
Pick the, how would first of all, I would not campaign on pick the lesser of two evils. That's not what I would do. I mean, you asking me as a candidate? What is the question?
No, as a host, like let's just say next year it's Biden versus Trump, and so it's a similar situation as Hillary versus Trump.
Now you're assuming. Look, there's an assumption you're making, right? That there was a policy set that people had a problem with Clinton about. Those people who stayed home. It was like policy issues, right?
Some. I do think there was kind of this excitement among the rural areas about jobs coming back with the Foxconn deal, which now, of course, is very unpopular here. That got Governor Walker voted out. But at the time, Trump talked about jobs, and Walker was talking about jobs, and the
right. And Clinton didn't even come there. I mean, I think. Look, I think it's pretty clear that I'm not a fan of Joe Biden's, but I would imagine he's going to come into Wisconsin and say, "We're going to get you jobs." I mean, I think
as far as our job, once that happens, is going to be to do, unfortunately, the same thing we did in 2016. We're just saying a swing state, you got to vote for Joe Biden, and who cares in a non-swing state?
I think though, the one olive branch I'll give in terms of, I guess, what people call vote shaming or whatever, is I'm very time focused. So I don't care how somebody voted in 2016. It's utterly irrelevant to me. How are they going to vote now? And right now, the primary issue is sorting a primary and nominating Bernie Sanders and dealing and supporting progressive candidates. So to me, this is like a conversation that's going to, I mean, I hope it doesn't take place again, because I hope that Joe Biden is not the nominee. I hope that Kamala Harris is not the nominee. But, you know, this conversation got heightened, at least from someone like me, in the summer and fall of 2016, when people were making not only, not even just sort of moralistic arguments, they were actually making strategic arguments that were just really faulty. And we foresaw a lot of really clear human suffering. And again, there's going to be a lot of human suffering with Clinton as well. I mean, I make very clear to people that, you know, Hillary Clinton is absolutely awful and repugnant to me. And it was a real, you know, but I have to vote for it because I have to minimize harm. But I don't think the primary issue right now is this conversation at all. The primary issue right now is there's an opportunity to actually elect good people. And I hope that people have learned from it. And I also don't see, and I find it frankly equally as bizarre. Like, I don't get why people on Twitter have a meltdown about someone like Susan Sarandon every 5 seconds. It's weird. Focus on the present, and then we'll see what comes to pass. I
actually think that there's, I mean, I have more of an issue with, I mean, I didn't have a meltdown when Susan Sarandon came back out this time around, and I really don't ever think about her unless somebody brings her up. But I have more of an issue with, you know, I mean, listen, I think it's stupid to vote for someone you know has no chance of winning. I just think it's stupid because, you know, voting is a tool, and it's a waste of your tool. I think it's irresponsible to have a platform and encourage people to do something stupid. I think that's worse than doing something stupid. Because if you're someone who is somewhat knowledgeable about this stuff, or have a platform and feel confident that you're knowledgeable enough to sort of suggest to other people what they should do, then I think you have a higher responsibility and, frankly, a greater, I don't know if culpability is the right word, but a greater responsibility. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, I guess for me, like the first election I voted in was the 2000 election, and I voted Ralph Nader. You know, this is back before Wisconsin was really a swing state. This is kind of we're upcoming the first time where Wisconsin thought of kind of a swing state. And, you know, like when I voted for Nader, I felt proud, and I did vote Democrat, you know, for everything else below the presidential line. And yeah, I'm just concerned when. But
you see, we're saying two different things here too, because you're conflating two different groups of people. Because we didn't have a situation where people came out and didn't vote for Clinton but voted for Feingold. We just had a situation where people stayed at home. And what that to me suggests is not so much that they had a problem with the message, because, you know, Feingold, very hard to lump together with Hillary Clinton, I think, by people who, you know, sort of have, but I think there was just a sense like there was not enough activity in the state. You needed a top of the ticket to come to generate that enthusiasm to come out and vote. And that enthusiasm, you know, it's not like Hillary Clinton. If she wanted to talk about her policies, I can't imagine that people would be like, well, you know, based upon where we are now, having debt-free college as opposed to a free college, I'm not going to go out and vote. I just don't think that people made that calculation.
Specifically, profoundly did not trust or like her for absolutely justifiable reasons.
Well, that's fine, but why didn't they vote for Russ Feingold?
Just to connect.
Why didn't they vote for Russ?
To people who didn't stay. To people who, well, I don't know why they didn't vote for Russ Feingold. I know if you read
based upon
really
your story.
No.
Why didn't they vote for Russ Feingold?
I'm talking. Well, based upon my story, which is the reported story by people like Malaika Jabali, she asked them about Hillary Clinton. So I don't know why people didn't go and vote.
What did she ask them about Russ Feingold?
She didn't ask them about Russ Feingold.
Well, so my point is,
wait. Let me
my point is, you're trying to say that the reason why people didn't come out was because of Hillary Clinton.
That's definitely part of it. That's obviously part of it. But in addition to that, I would just say I would never shame somebody who didn't vote ever. I think for somebody who stayed home, the job is purely to motivate them And, if you didn't, regardless of whatever the reasons are, you've got to do your best to address them.
Who is not voting and listening to this show? Right? Like who?
Yeah, sure.
Like who is not going out and voting? They're listening to this show. Like I listened to this show for 3 or 4 years, and I decided not to go and vote in the election. There is no.
Did you read one of the current affairs pieces though? You really got to read those. You got to sharpen up on that.
I read her thing, but who is not voting that is listening to this show? Nobody. People like if you're not going out and voting for Russ Feingold in Wisconsin, you just don't give a shit.
You didn't read that piece.
No, I get you. You're turned off and you're apathetic about it.
Gotta read that piece.
But it's super easy to sort of disengage because you don't like the person on the top of the ticket. Then go out and vote for the senator who's going to vote for you. Go out and vote against the governor who is going to destroy collective bargaining in your state. Yeah. I'm sorry. I get that people were turned off by Hillary Clinton. And I get that people are, feel dispossessed, but I don't know that you can reach them. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But I think part of the problem was there just wasn't enough activity there.
I mean, literally going in the last week of the election, Feingold in most polls was 5 to 10 points up. But because it presumed a voter turnout model like they'd seen in the past, except for the work wasn't done on the ground like it had been done in the past. And so there wasn't the same mobilization that there had been in the past.
I mean, but it's also like the highly engaged and frankly, the people who listen to the show are not the people that we need to persuade anyway. So it's kind of secondary. I'm just
saying like the vote shaming thing, like whose vote are we shaming?
Well, whose vote? Well, if you're shaming somebody for not voting or you're shaming somebody for voting third party, you're shaming them.
No,
right?
well, not if they're not hearing me. I'm saying that it's a dumb thing to do.
That's the biggest problem with this conversation is I actually think the caller is 100% right. And unless data and reporting bears this out for people who stayed home and so on, that shaming and attacking them is counterproductive, stupid, and elitist. I think the problem is that this small cross-section of people that we interact with that refuse to vote for Hillary Clinton are very highly engaged and they just have really bad arguments.
Well,
that got spilled out to a broader electorate that it shouldn't.
Right. And my point is that exactly, I'm not shaming the voters because I don't have access to the voters. I'm shaming the people who do have access to the voters. And, frankly, a Susan Sarandon may be one of those people. She may not be. I don't know.
I doubt it. Give yourself more credit.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, if Sarandon
after the 2000 election, how many years was Ralph Nader blamed for George Bush?
Well, I'll tell you something. As a Ralph Nader voter myself in New York State, Ralph Nader made a promise early on that he would not campaign in those swing states. Now, I don't think Ralph Nader's the only problem, but Al Gore lost that election by less than 1,000 votes.
I'm interested in what you do now.
Well, as to that point, if Sarandon endorses Jill Stein again, I'm going to call her an idiot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. But again, a bridge when we come to it. Also, and even in the Gore case, I will say Ralph Nader does not have an honorable record as far as I can understand from 2000 because of the campaign promise. But even then, we know
he also said he was going to build the Green Party. And another example.
He failed.
He didn't try.
Right. But he failed to hit that 5%.
Yeah.
And that's actually another difference I want to say. I think if you voted for Ralph Nader in 2000, that was the last time in modern politics where you actually had a very tangible, clear, and actual achievable goal. Like, he could have won 5% of the national vote. And then there would have been money transferred to the Green Party. Now, I don't know what that would have even led to, but the argument of that campaign was so much different than the last couple of these, fantasy runs. And that's a distinction as well. But even in that case, the voter suppression, the Supreme Court, the Gore campaign, all of these things are still much bigger factors than Nader.
Of course.
And people like to act like this is about voter shaming when really we're party and media shaming. right? Like, this is about the Green Party sucking.
Well,
and
that's the
about
thing.
certain
People
media
talking to me
figures.
about shaming voters who don't. There's no fucking voters who didn't vote who hear my voice.
That's another thing.
I know who I'm talking to, is what I'm saying.
Don't conflate. The United States Green Party as it stands now is a utterly stupid and shameful thing. And I'm sure it's filled, by the way, with really great people. But honestly, people with great politics who I wish were doing other more productive things. That experiment's failed.
I appreciate the call.
Well, Sam,
You're breaking up.
You say that nobody's listening to your show, that nobody's listening to your show and not voting, but there are people who watch your show and then talk to others. You know, the multiplier effect.
Yeah. And I think I don't think the idea is to go out and browbeat them. It's a dumb thing to do, and I'm trying to encourage people to go out and get their friends to vote.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
appreciate
it. Was just kind of the dilemma, and I wasn't saying it to you specifically. I was kind of just broadly speaking.
All right. Well, I appreciate that.
I want every single voter who voted for Jill Stein to be marched through the streets, and we go, shame.
I saw some tweet that annoyed me throughout the vacation at one point, and it was just something to the effect. I'm trying to think if I can remember what the phrasing was. Something to the effect of like, I'm not going to vote blue no matter who. It is the politician's responsibility to earn my vote. And it's like, but it's also like this attitude of like, I mean, I think it is incumbent upon politicians to go out and get votes. But I also think that as a voter, you also have some responsibility. Like this is not, you're not a consumer. This is the problem, is that all these people who are saying this, right, will also spin around and start going, like, you're a neoliberal. There is nothing more neoliberal than the concept of a politician has to earn my vote. Like, it's one thing to say that politicians need to go out and get votes. But you as an individual to say, like, the only thing that's going to make me vote for that person is going to be if they've earned it, if they've sold me on them. Like it's a purchase, as opposed to there are real world implications for this choice you're going to make. And you have a choice. You have 2 cups of water. One has deadly poison, one has poison that's going to give you diarrhea, but you have no other source of water. What are you going to do? It's like, and it's possible that if you get enough diarrhea, you could die.
I just want to say though, I am increasingly like, if you come at it with I'm gonna vote for Green Party, whatever, I just think it's a total waste of time. And exactly what Sam's saying about how neoliberal that argument is, I agree completely. I do think the crisis we're in and the numbers we're in are really clear. And if we keep having basically, look, if electoral politics, and I would still recommend people vote to minimize harm. So I'll never reverse myself in that position. But if people start to increasingly say maybe things need to come through other currents in politics because these systems are not delivering and the crisis point is really approaching fast, I would be curious what those ideas and thought processes are, because I'm more sympathetic to people's concern with the durability of the process. And I mean that tangibly, like if Joe Biden is elected president, his proposals on climate change, yes, they're better than Trump's. They're not going to accelerate the harm. I agree. Okay, that's the easy part. That's already taken care of. But we also know that what he's saying is literally scientifically not valid. Like we know that. I agree. So at a certain point, these cup metaphors, these water metaphors are true to a point. But we're reaching that departure point as well.
I also get annoyed that we get sort of painted as the sort of electoral focus, because this is not what we're saying at all.
I'd like us to de-emphasize that. Like, one of the most exciting things about Bernie, right?
Well, you pick the choices you have, and the way you make those choices better isn't by how you magically decide to vote. And
the funny thing is, too, is those same people who are like, they've got to earn my vote. My candidate was only able to get 2% support.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
It's you and what army? That's what politics.
Well, and I gotta say,
I mean, it's
I'm
like-
very concretely, like I this is though where I'm at. I went back and forth with some guy because he was annoyed, about something I said about the Green Party or whatever. But it became really clear in the conversation that he was occupying an ICE facility. He was doing so much actual work that to me it's like, you know what, dude, I disagree, but this is not the point of emphasis of my conversation. You're an honest to goodness activist and you're putting it on the line. And I'm, that's more relevant than bickering about that other stuff right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the value of going and occupying the ICE probably a lot more valuable than who that individual votes for in the final analysis. But that's because what he's doing is a public act as opposed to the private way of voting. And that's why my criticism is, I mean, you ask me, is it smart for you to vote this way? I'll say, no, it's dumb. But in terms of my criticism, it's for people who are publicly, who are doing the public thing, who are broadcasting like this is the better, and I include that on Twitter. You put it out there like, you could earn my, then I just, it's the public discourse. Who you pull the
well, that's just
for.
a pure neoliberal formulation. I mean, and again, by the way, very technically accurate use of the word neoliberal there too, as well, I'll add.
Right. Fully marketized. Folks, that's all the time that we have today, but we'll be back tomorrow live. Bye-bye.
No more conversations like this till the convention.
Right, yeah, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
To get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know